All right, so just to expand a little more, yeah, so like my mom and dad did everything for me. Growing up, I never learned to cook. My mom, she didn't cook either, but because she was too afraid to make mistakes because she has anxiety issues. But she would get me food every day. My mom would make my bed every day. She did it all. I never had to do any chores. I never had to clean. I never learned how to do any of that stuff. My mom did it all for me, or she had a cleaning lady. And, and my dad, he played basketball with me all the time. And I never learned how to do anything else other than basketball because my dad thought, my dad told me he thought I was going to play in the NBA. And, coaches said that they thought that I would play in the NBA, my dad said, not many players who look like me could play as good as me. And he thought I was going to play in the NBA. And all he did was focus on basketball. So I never went to any camps to learn how to, like Cub Scouts or something. I never learned anything, and I always got really good grades. I was very good at math, but my mom always put me in the lower classes because she thought that, she didn't want to give me stress. It was really, she didn't want stress. She had anxiety issues, but she didn't want to give me stress. And my mom and dad just wanted me to focus on basketball. They want to make me an NBA player. They wanted me to be an NBA player. That's what they thought I would be. And I was really good, I was exceptional. I did things no one does, the way I did things. The swag flow, I'm not going to go into details, but my swag flow was also, unbelievable. But, I was advanced with math. I would always be put in the highest math class, but my mom would tell the teachers, no, put him in the lower one because I don't want him to be stressed, So my mom kind of disadvantaged me, if you think about it, and because they just wanted me to play basketball. But then my dad gets a shoot away machine in, 7th grade, and he's like, yeah, you're going to get 500 shots a day. And then it messes up my shot. And once my shot's messed up, then he tries to fix it, but he tells me to fix it wrong. And I could show him exactly what happened, exactly what he did exactly wrong. And it just, everything deteriorated. And then my dad's frustrated. Why aren't you shooting right? I was shooting right. I was shooting automatic. I wasn't thinking still. But picking the ball off the rack, it made me put my feet wrong. And then my dad tried to fix my feet and he told me to do the exact wrong thing. And it was just a tragedy, dude. So, and then, things just deteriorate from there because now my shot's messed up. And then my dad's like, what's going on? My mom's like, oh my God, you're a shooter. Why can't you shoot? What the fuck is wrong with you? And then everything just deteriorated. But my point is, though, my mom and dad did everything for me. And they treated me like, as my uncle said, they treated me like a king. But then once the basketball fell apart, then they deserted me, and they just threw me to the side. And that's what my uncle said they did. And then they disbanded me. They tried to throw me into a psych ward. And they basically, but my grandpa came in and didn't help. And he's like, well, Ryan really wants his independence. And he didn't know it was a shoot away machine. I didn't know it was a shoot away machine. But he comes up with all these ideas. Oh, everything's just fine. And it just wants independence. He probably thought I was a piece of shit. He probably just thought I was a bad basketball player. He came from Kauai. He never knew how good I was, And he's coming up with all his stupid theories. Oh, it's just independence is what he wants. Blah, blah, blah. And, no, I didn't want independence. I needed more help, but my grandpa did not help. And then he made things worse, and then this thing's deteriorated. And, oh yeah, no talking about the past and da-da-da. And I didn't want to talk about the past at that time. But, I understand why he said that. I shouldn't have talked about, he didn't want me to talk about the abuse. But then when I wanted to get back into basketball, my mom's like, no, why do you want to be in basketball? That's the past. Grow the fuck up. You're 23 years old. I could have gotten back into basketball. They could have helped me get basketball videos. That would have really helped me. So I could see how the swag flow, first off, because I lost that. And I could see all that stuff. But my mom's like, oh my God, you're stuck in the past. Didn't your grandpa teach you not to talk about the past? Get over the past. That's why you're schizophrenic. No, I wasn't schizophrenic. But anyways, things just deteriorated. And I don't think my grandpa helped. And my grandpa didn't help. Then they threw me to Kauai and my grandpa made things worse, My grandpa's like, oh, Ryan really wants his independence. And he just wants to, No, dude. I needed some support. And I wanted to talk to my mom and dad. And my grandpa's like, no. And everything just deteriorated to shit, But I discovered a theory of everything, and everything's going to work out, hopefully. But it's just but my point is, so I never learned how to do anything. So then, I'm not going to say the girl's name, but then, as I said, I was driving down Florence. I was meeting with my friend. And again, I had a lot of loser friends. My friends have become losers because it's of course, because I sort of became a loser because my family abandoned me, I discovered the theory of everything, but people don't know that, So I'm going to meet my friend at a church. And then I bump into, I'm just going to call her C. And so I bumped into C. And, and she's basically dressed up as a prostitute. And she's basically, basically looks like she's prostituting. But, then I talk, I got her phone number because she looked very beautiful. And I was just like, hey, what's up? How's it going? And then I call her, and then, then she called me like a week later because I didn't even call her. She called me, and then she's just like, she starts talking to me. She's telling me how she just got into prostitution, but she never really did any prostitution. She never really had sex with any guys, but she was just thinking about it. She was just kind of like rebelling, and she wanted to hang out sometime. And I was like, yeah, and this girl, she was pretty, and I liked her. She was cool. And it turns out she's an INFJ, and I'm an INTP, and INFJs and INTPs tend to be compatible, So it's like, so I started to, talk to her and all that stuff. But at the time, I didn't know she was an INFJ. I figured that out later. But this is the thing is, like I said, one of the main things I wanted to learn how to do stuff. And, and she knew how to cook, and she knew how to clean and stuff. And I was thinking, okay, well, she'll teach me how to cook a little bit. So I started to try to learn. But then at the same time, I was confused because I was listening to Andrew Tate, and he's like, those guys are like, yeah, don't cook because that's not, that's submissive. That's not masculine. So then I didn't want to learn how to cook, and I just wanted her to cook for me. And I was just confused at the time, And like one of the things I did with Katie was, I started to try to learn how to cook, like try to cook for her and stuff. Because my friend Bill was like, yeah, you should cook for her when she's pregnant and stuff. And, but then that backfired. So I'm thinking like, okay, well, I'll listen to Andrew Tate and don't cook and, be a masculine man or whatever. But anyways, it would have been nice to learn how to cook, but I want to learn how to do stuff. And like I said, I've got the $25,000 from the lawsuit with the Risperdal when they force injected me, and I got the gynecomastia and the nerve damage and stuff. So I got $25,000 lawsuit. So I finally had money, and I was finally able to do things. So I was like, okay, well, I was going to use Chris as an excuse to, because when I don't like to have a girlfriend because it takes away my time from studying. And I'm a Enneagram 5 wing 4, and we just like independence. We like to study, and we like to gain competence and constant study and stuff. And like, social interactions and having like a girlfriend, that takes away from that. But, I was like, okay, well, I'll use Chris to gain more competence. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll take her to Utah, and we'll buy stuff. And I was never able to buy clothes because I don't have, fashion sense. So I was like, okay, well, she'll teach me how to like, she'll pick out clothes for me. And, and also like, I'll drive around and I'll learn how to get hotels. And we went to Las Vegas, and I'll learn how to do this stuff. We used hotel.com. We went with this one loser guy, like a Jewish guy who was a, anti-white Jewish guy who had kind of like Asperger's or something. But this guy was an asshole. But I went with him and Chris, and I just, you could say I was using them, but I was just like, I'm going to use them to teach me things. So like, we'll figure. I've never been to hotels before, so I'm going to learn how to do it. I never learned any of this stuff. My mom and dad never taught me anything. They did everything for me my whole life, and then they abandoned me. So if I would have, I would have wanted to learn from my mom and dad. I would have wanted to ask my mom and dad, hey mom, how do you use the mail? Hey mom, how do you cook, or how do you clean, or how do you, but, I couldn't ask them anything because they abandoned me. First they did everything for me, and then they abandoned me once the shoot away machine messed up my shot. So, it was kind of tragic, but, but so I was like, okay, I'll use Chris, okay, well, no, people aren't going to know who she is, but I'll use C, and, I'll just say Chris, I'll use Chris. And so, but, and Chris liked me, it seemed, but the thing was, she was, I picked her up originally on the street, but she was pretty much a prostitute, but she said she had never done the prostitution, but she clearly had some mental issues. Like she would still be dressing up kind of prostitute-like, and she had some mental issues, but at the same time, I could tell she liked me, and she was like, and she was cool, like, but at the same time, like, I never really had girlfriends, and I always saw that it was like a waste of time. It would take away from my time of study and stuff. But, with Chris, I was just like, okay, well, I'll use my time with her to try things I never did before. Like, so we went to Venice Beach. I never really been there that much, and I wanted to see the stuff there. And we went to different places, and I used it as my time with her as an excuse to do things I wouldn't normally do, to learn more that I wouldn't normally learn. Because I was spending all my time, doing, listening to Internet Archive and stuff, and studying. But so I used that time to do that stuff. So you could say I used her, but not necessarily. She probably used me too, because I was, I got the $25,000, so I was paying for a lot for her. But I was like, well, it's worth it because, I wouldn't be doing this stuff otherwise. So I'm going to buy stuff for her and we'll go shopping. And, I never been shopping to these places before. I don't know any of this stuff. So like, well, let's drive to Utah, let's drive to these different places. But another thing that was interesting was, I learned this thing from this book called Mate, that they were like, women, the thing that women care most about is like social circles and like your social approval, and how, because that represents that you have good genes, and that you're healthy, and that if you have, but I didn't have good social circles. I did when I was younger, and that was the thing. Once I kind of became the white supremacist, and then I became a leftist, and all the abandoned by my family. Like I said, all that stuff wouldn't have happened if I wasn't abandoned by my family. I think I was abandoned by my family, and then I kind of things spiraled out of control. And then I became isolated and alienated. But before, I was very popular my whole life, and I always knew that girls like popular guys. And I also lost the swag flow, and girls like the swag flow, but I lost it. But I wasn't popular anymore. Now I had just a few friends, like my friend Bill and Roger, who were both like mentally kind of like fucked up, mentally ill a little bit. And I didn't have a big social circle. Or like my friend Johnny, who's kind of like a hippie, so I was just like, but I wanted to show Chris, because from this Mate book, they're like, well, if you have a few friends, show the girl your friends, because that shows that you have social approval, and, that's good. Women like that. And so I showed her my, I tried to bring my friends along, but like my friend Bill, he's like a right-wing conservative, like very like right-wing. And he liked my grandpa stuff. Like, yeah, you got to take accountability and responsibility. And he takes things to the extreme, but he's like mentally ill, you could tell. He's a little bit isolated, but he's an ENFJ though. But, so I'm hanging out with, and again, like I'm an INTP, he's an ENFJ, so we get along. But the thing is, like, so I'm hanging out with him, and I'm trying to introduce him to like Chris and stuff. But then he's talking shit about me, because he's like, oh, well, and then he's telling Chris about Katie. He's like, well, don't you know about Katie, that she just had abortion and all this stuff? And I'm like, dude, what the fuck? Why are you telling Chris all this bad shit about me? But he's talking mad shit about me in front of Chris. And like, I brought him in front of her to, so again, maybe I was trying to make things happen. My grandpa would say, you're trying to make things happen. You weren't in the flow. But, I tried to bring him in front of her to try to like, boost me a little bit. Like, hey, look, I have friends, and, that social approval, and that means I have good genes, and you like me more. But then he's talking mad shit about me, like, oh yeah, well, dude, Ryan's such a fucking loser, dude. His last girlfriend got abortion. He's losing his mind. And, and basically he was trying to get Chris to not like me. And I was like, dude, what the fuck? But, so, and then I didn't have many other friends to introduce to Chris, but I didn't want Chris to think I had no friends. So I introduced her to my friend Roger, but, Roger has kind of mentally ill, and he kind of has like schizophrenia kind of, and it's like, and Chris didn't really like Roger. And so at first she liked me a lot. At first Chris is like, oh, this guy's really awesome. He must be great. But again, like I said, I think it's because my family abandoned me, and it's left me in a bad place. Once my family abandoned me, things spiraled out of control. Things got really bad, and I became isolated and alienated. And then I got loser friends. And then, so Chris at first likes me. The same thing happened with Katie. At first, Katie liked me a lot. She's like, well, this guy's really cool. This guy must have a lot of cool friends. This guy's really awesome. But then Chris started to see, your mom and dad don't talk to you. Oh, your friends are losers. Oh, your ex, according to your friend, your ex had an abortion, and like all this stuff. And the things just started going like, and then so I feel like Chris started to not like me as much, So at first she liked me a lot, and she was already kind of crazy. But then now that she stopped liking me a little bit, it seemed like then she started treating me a little bit more with disrespect, because she's like, oh, you have loser friends, your own mom and dad won't talk to you. And then she's like, okay. And then she started treating me more with disrespect. So I'll get more into that and into what happened with that.